So here we are for the coloring of the black and white ink drawing I did last time. I'm going to show you here the time-lapse version of my process. And in the beginning I scanned in my line art at 600 dpi so that I have good quality. And in the last video I said that maybe I can make my outlines a little bit sharper because the paper was feathering out a little bit with my pocket brush pen. But in the end I realized to get a sharp, clean edge for this drawing would mean a lot of work, so I decided to, or if it were even possible, I don't know, I just decided to keep it that way, make it a clean white and a clean black, and then just keep the natural look of the brush stroke, how it went. Now I positioned my outlines in the middle of my drawing space because on the paper it's a little bit to the left, and when I did that the handle of the spear was too short, so I faked the line in digital with the stamp tool, so the lines go until the edge of the paper. I simply put my outlines on multiply and put all my color layers underneath it. I made one big color layer for everything. I just chose a color I was sure I'm going to use somewhere. So this first color layer is also my mask reference. So every other color layer I made it as a my Photoshop is in German. Oh, there's a woodpecker on my tree in my garden. Sorry, I'm just distracted by looking at the woodpecker. I have to film it with my phone. Maybe I can show it to you. Please don't fly away. Please stay there. The woodpecker. Can you see the little woodpecker there? This is awesome. I mean, I have never seen a woodpecker from my window when I was living in Stuttgart, and now I live in Berlin, in an even bigger city, and there is simply just a woodpecker on my tree. Incredible. Awesome. So anyway, where was I? So yeah, I was thinking about so it's a masking layer. So when I locked the first layer with the color over the whole figure, all the other layers that I used as a mask layer above them, they were locked on that color. So I had to focus on not drawing over the lines, at least the outlines surrounding the figure. And then after that it was easier to draw the other ones. I mean, you see what I'm doing. I hope you understand what I did there. I'm not that good at explaining the technical part of what I do, because mostly what I do stuff on a whim. So if I see if something works, I just do it. I also tried to use a color palette that I liked, which I had in my Photoshop library. You can get them at this Adobe Color Wheel application. You don't even need an Adobe subscription to use that tool if you want to use it yourself. You just need a subscription if you want to save them and put them into your Photoshop directly. But it's a funny tool, and I tried to use simply one palette, but I couldn't, so I just use it as a reference and I jumped around anyway. What I know that I wanted to do is stay in brown tones, because her jacket is made out of leather, there's all this fur, so I wanted to have a lot of natural tones, but I decided to make the background in blue to give it that little icy feeling, and I wanted to have some highlight colors. So her eyes are bright green, the little stone is a bright green, and the face painting has a little red there. One point I haven't talked about is that I used some paper texture and some grunge texture there, just so that the background isn't so flat. And I really like this grunge texture. Oh, it's a heavy word to say. Grunge texture. I really like using that because in the middle it's it's light, and on the edges it gets a little bit darker, and so the focus of what I want my viewer to see is on the middle, on the figure. So that's really good for the composition, and it's simply not that flat. I just like it. So after I have laid down my flat colors everywhere, that woodpecker is still pecking at the tree. So fascinating. Okay. So after I laid down my base colors everywhere, my flat colors, I locked all the layers so that I could paint to my heart's content, I would say. I decided to do one color for shading, and then one little bit darker color for the extra deep shadows. And for the light, I decided to just take one lighter color. Usually I do 2 colors for the shading and 2 colors for the light, but in this case I decided to just have 1 color for the light. And I chose, normally I do this kind of cell shading with a hard round brush, but in this case I tried to take this fake Sumi ink brush, which is clipped, and it's not so, it doesn't have these clear edges, because I thought it might go well with the brush style of the outlines, and I tried to work a little bit looser than what I normally do. In the end I thought that the light color for the leather was too light, so I went over it again with 50% opacity, so that I turned that down a bit again. And when I was done with all my colors, my shading, my lighting, I made one layer for the general shadow overall. So I made one layer with a transparency of 30. Afterwards I changed it a little bit and took a soft brush and darkened everything that's a little bit more to the right, because my light is coming from the left. And I did the same with a general light source. So I again made a new layer. I chose a white color and I chose a soft light for that layer. So the other one is on multiply. So the shadow layer is on multiply, and the light layer with the white color is on soft light. And then I put a little bit of extra lighting from the left, and I flip back and forth sometimes there so that you can see the difference. And I think having this general shadow layer and general light layer at the end gives it a more well-rounded feeling. So the whole picture is more coherent. It has more it's more realistic to have this softness. So without these 2 layers, the drawing is still good, but it's more, I think it's even more cartoony, and this one gives it a little bit more depth, a little bit more realism in it. And that was just something I wanted to try, and after I had done that with the shadow and the light layer, I started to like what I have done. That's a good moment to stop this voice recording. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you like the outcome, and we will see us next time. Bye!